made up of missionaries. We call them teachers, but they really are our missionaries. They reach into the community through all the students that come here. Because Redland Christian Academy is not some kind of business. It's a ministry of this congregation and has been for over 30 years. So I've asked Will Burnett, who's new to the school this year, I gave him an assignment. I said, I just want you to come up and tell your heart. He wanted to know a little bit more. I said, no, just come up and tell your heart. Without that, I have no idea where Will's going to go. But come on up here and tell us about our mission field, brother.
Like Mr. Mike said, I call him Mr. Mike even though he hates it. Like he said, he asked me to be here today to tell you guys a little bit about what's going on in the school. He says, well, tell your heart. He knows how soft my heart is, especially when I'm a little tired. It's a little mushy, so bear with me. My name is Will Burnett. I'm the science instructor here at Redland Christian Academy. A little bit about myself. I got a background in athletics. I played Division I college football at Rutgers University. Played a little bit in the professional ranks, but I had a bad knee. Wasn't in the cards. Something I had to deal with when God redirected my life. But it was okay. I went ahead and pursued my academics. Received my degree after coming back to school from playing professional football. Went into a little entrepreneurial effort, and eventually, when I got married and settled my life down, became a research chemist at New Jersey. Brain fried, all the analytical thinking, being boxed in a four-walled room all day in cold weather in New Jersey wasn't quite working out for me. My wife's family's from Miami. My wife has a lot of history with Redland Christian Academy. When she was pregnant with our first daughter, she was an ESC teacher here. So we've been in this school for a long time. I actually helped them organize the first inaugural field day that I'm happy to see that coach is taking to new heights nowadays. So I've been around for a while, just never involved in the capacity that I am today. How did I get here? That's even funnier. We first moved back to Miami after I left the laboratory. I took a job with the regional carrier for American Airlines called Envoy Air. But, you know, my father-in-law has been working here for a couple years now, and he knows where my strengths are, I'll put it that way. He called me one day and said, well, come on down and sign up for substitute teaching. You know, maybe you can make a little side money. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I get here, before I walk in the door, he said, hey, Will, you're looking for a science teacher. And I'm like, come on, man. What do you mean they're looking for a science teacher? Before I know it, I'm in Julie Bergman's office being interviewed for the science position. And as we know, guys, there are no mistakes here. I couldn't walk away from it. It's somewhere I felt like I needed to be at the time. And this little report here that Mike thought was going to be a sermon is going to tell you my experience over the past year. When he first told me, Will, I want you to come give a sermon, I'm like, no, Mike, no. Can't do that. I'm not ready for that. He knows how difficult this is for me. And I've paced this same corridor a couple Wednesdays now with the kids. Getting a little better at it, but this is a little different. I know my kids. We have a conversation. We have town hall style talks about things that they're dealing with in everyday life. But when he said, no, Will, I just want you to tell them about school, what we've experienced, what you've seen, what we're doing. I said, okay, Mike, that's easy, because little did he know I was already preparing a report for our administrator at the end of the year. But since we're void of administration now, I guess he's going to unleash me on the congregation. But me being a scientist and a researcher, ever since I stepped foot in this building, I've been studying the kids. Not because I'm a little older now. I still try to think myself their age, but I'm a little older. So I'm trying to understand the culture of our youth, not just for being able to communicate with them a little better, being able to teach them a little better, but because I have kids of my own. And that is one of my more important jobs to this date. So I want to get to know them. I want to get to know how their minds are working. What has changed since I was a kid? So bear with me. This is going to be a little lengthy. I tried to whittle it down and not make it as expository as Mike tends to get, he says. But this is just my observations over the years of some of the challenges that our students are facing in their spiritual growth, especially here at Redland Christian Academy. Bear with me. I'm going to do some reading. I haven't committed much of this to memory, but I'm going to try my best to explain a little bit what I'm talking about here. So some of the problems that our kids are facing today. Now, we know there's no secret that the future of the church lies in the young people. And that future is dependent on our capacity, not just here on Sunday, but in situations, organizations like Redland Christian Academy who are still doing it the way that it should be done, faith-based. To bring these people closer to Jesus Christ, it is our obligation to try to understand a little better about the problems that they're facing. For those of us who are no longer as young as we used to be, this entails making an effort to communicate a 1,000-year experience of salvation in a way that makes sense to the youth of today, which is very hard, guys, very hard. Like I said, I still like to consider myself their age, but I had a rude awakening when I first stepped in here. I'm so not their age anymore. The church will never begin to address the growing problem of young people leaving the faith if it doesn't first recognize the challenges facing Christian students. The reality of young people can be approached from various different angles. Now, me being a scientist, I started looking up all kind of statistical data, all of these numbers and things of that nature, but I had to abandon that a while ago, and I settled on a very real experience that those of us who work with them every day and those of us who can read their lives. Even though it might be quite a while since we were actually young, if you just take time and listen to the kids, if you connect with them and try to understand their perspective, try to understand their intention, you'll realize we still can communicate with them a lot better than we have in the past. It is also very important, like I said, to listen to what they're saying about themselves, directly or indirectly. A lot of times they're not saying it verbally. A lot of times they're showing it in inadequacies, self-esteem issues, allowing themselves to be preyed on by other kids. These are telltale signs. With guidance from Mike, believe it or not, because he knows what I struggle with every day, I go to him and I ask him certain things on how to not just listen to my heart, but to listen to theirs. Here are a few of the things that I observed. Now, the problems kids are facing today, a lot of them are nothing new to what kids faced in the past. So when I first embarked on this journey, I went to my study Bible, and I just read a quick little excerpt on what it spoke about kids in the history of Christian, in the Christian church. So bear with me 1 second while I find that page. Okay, so it starts by saying, what role did children play in biblical times? What does it mean to inherit the kingdom of God as children? In spite of the magnitude of his extended family and his great wealth, Abraham still felt the loss of having no children. Similarly, Zechariah and Elizabeth, though they were righteous before God, suffered on account of their childlessness in Luke 1. In the Old Testament, the bearing and rearing of children was not only regarded as the greatest of God's gifts, but was seen as one of the primary ways for God's people to maintain their relationship to him. It was seen as one of the primary ways of God's people to maintain their relationship to him. And that's very important, because when I get into my testimony, not only about what we've done for the kids, but what they've done for me, I'll get back into that. Have many children and grow in number. God has instructed the first parents in Genesis 1:28. Baby boys were to be circumcised, it says in Genesis 17. And ancient Jews adopt the custom of blessing all children in Numbers 6:24-26. They were gifts from God, and they were the guarantee of an ongoing covenant between God and the people of Israel. It is surprising then that children have virtually no respect in ancient Israel. No respect. In spite of their importance to the agreement God had made with his people, children were not highly regarded in everyday social interaction. This may be due to the short life expectancy of children in the ancient world. In addition, according to tradition, the most important position in the ancient village was held by the older people. So kids really didn't have a say. Not in the ancient times. This is not to say that God lacked interest in children, however. Even if the structures of local communities provided little esteem from children, God could and often did choose to work with and through children. Though he was only a boy, for instance, David was God's choice to be king of Israel. Samuel himself was called to serve God when Samuel was a little boy. Jeremiah is called to be a prophet, even though he is only a boy. And in the New Testament, a girl named Rhoda is the only one who recognized God has rescued Peter from prison. She has a hard time convincing the adults that what she had seen was true, but nonetheless, she was correct. The psalm says, "To the Lord, you have taught children and babies to sing praise to you." Now, by the time of Jesus, a lot of children in larger society had improved. Jesus and his early followers lived in a time when people were very concerned with questions about who was the greatest. In this society, it was easy to say who was the least important. Obviously, children. If we're talking about who was the greatest, then who's the least important? It most likely was children. Their fathers had almost absolute control over their lives, and from the time children were born until the death of their fathers. Children were important only as much as they contributed to the family livelihood through their work in the field. Otherwise, they should be neither seen nor heard. Now, who grew up in a family where that was the case? I know I did, right? I'm telling you now, these kids nowadays, no, I doubt if anyone has ever heard that before. Ian, have you ever heard that before? Children are to be seen and not heard? No? What about you, Asher? You've heard of it? Okay, you're more traditional. You're in a more traditional household. So this is what makes Jesus' interest in children so surprising. Although his followers were acting in the normal way and refusing to allow children to come near Jesus, he welcomed children into his presence and blessed them. In Mark 10, verse 13 through 16. He restores to life the 12-year-old daughter of Jairus and casts a demon out of a young boy. Even more surprising is the way Jesus uses children as examples of what it means to follow him. For example, in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus took a small child and had him stand among his disciples. Taking the child in his arms, he said, "Whoever accepts a child like this in my name accepts me." What would it mean to accept or to receive a little child? In the world of Jesus, this would mean to treat children as special guests, as though they were the most important members of the community. In order to do this, Jesus' followers would have to stop thinking of themselves as so important. This is also the message of Jesus when he says that people must receive the kingdom as God as if you were a little child. He's not trying to say that the followers of Jesus should have childlike faith or innocence. After all, children in the world of Jesus were not known for their faith or innocence. They were hardly known at all, since they were regarded as unimportant. When Jesus instructs people to act as though they were little children, then he is asking them to quit thinking so highly of themselves. He's asking them to stop thinking of themselves as more important than others. Like the children in the world of Jesus, followers of Jesus need to content themselves with having little or no power to make people act like they want them to act. The practices of God in the Old Testament and the message about children in Jesus' ministry remain as fresh today as when they were first recorded. Now, that passage right there gave me a very important direction to take when I was teaching the children. It made me get off of my high horse, my degrees, my accomplishments as an athlete, all of my high-level management positions I've been on, and to come in here and not talk at them, but to talk with them. And if I may say so myself, I think I've been pretty successful in terms of communicating with the kids. I find myself being pulled in a lot of directions throughout the day, giving advice, trying to help out those who need a shoulder or just someone to listen to them. But without getting off on a tangent, I also learned a lot about the children and what they're facing today. The first thing I've noticed is that the kids face the issue of preparedness. Many who are now adults neglected this issue and now find adulthood overbearing. Lack of discipline and overindulgence. I talked to the kids about this the other day. Even as adults, some of us who weren't taught or didn't have the opportunities to expose us to certain levels of discipline has taught us bad habits and kind of corrupted our adult lives, and we struggle with that every day. Youth is a time for preparing for a future life. Actually, all of a life is a time for preparing for eternity, but especially are the days of youth the time to set your standards. My talk before discipline was of standards. Talk to them about standards. You had an issue in school to where an incident occurred, and it wasn't an incident that happened. It was how the general population perceived that incident that broke my heart. I couldn't believe some of the things I was hearing. I couldn't believe some of the things I was not hearing. And that made me feel like, you know what? We need to address what the values of our kids are. After some time of thinking about, do I know what they are? Can I see them? Are there signs out there? Yeah, it was pretty obvious. But it gave me an opportunity, actually Dave gave me an opportunity to talk to the kids about some of the standards and values, to bring to their attention some of the things that I've observed. Too many youths build ceilings over themselves while young that they cannot penetrate once they are adults. Limitations. It all goes back to their self-perception, which I'll get into a little later. Too many leave the years of youth and enter adulthood unprepared. Most of the time by no fault of their own, but once again, this is what I'm recognizing my role as an educator is. They must become prepared physically, socially, and mentally, but most important of all, spiritually. This is my first teaching job. And I pray and I thank God every day that it happened to be in an institution that I can express my views and I can talk to them about God. I can talk to them about their spirituality. I can not resort on the motivational tactics I've heard in the past, all this technical mind-bending that I've experienced. And I can talk to them where that true strength comes from. And if we don't build them up spiritually, none of that is going to have a real foundation when they get out into the real world. And they start seeking these self-help CDs and self-help DVDs. Spiritually, giving them this foundation here at RCA is paramount. If youth fail to prepare, they're going to face immeasurable problems. We know that. The hardest part is getting them to understand that we know that and to listen to what we tell them to prepare themselves. That's very hard. While not yet encumbered with the duties and responsibilities of adulthood, young people need to avail themselves of opportunities to prepare themselves in all areas. I touched on that in my talk about discipline, about finding every opportunity to be a challenge to overcome, to build a little bit of strength every second of the day. Small victories to start making healthy habits, to start building yourself up, to start preparing yourself for future problems. Kids nowadays are in a hurry. Everybody knows that. I was in a hurry when I was a kid. These are the timelessness problems that they're facing. I was in a hurry. But why? Why are we in a hurry? What does that mean to be in a hurry? Young people are often guilty of pushing life. It may not do much good to even mention it, but it's something that young people need to recognize. Youths are always wanting to be older than they are. It's somewhat like adults wanting to be younger, right? You know, we think about, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I need to get more sleep. No, you're getting old. You're getting old. Youths are important to grow up, are impatient to grow up. I'm sorry. They seem to think that everything worthwhile is for later in life. That's one of the challenges I've noticed. Everything worthwhile is later in life. And you know what that turns into? I'll do it later in life. I'll gamble my faith now for a season of indulgence. And later on, I'll reflect on some of the things you guys teach me here at RCA. That's wrong. That's backwards. That's backwards. Grass is always greener on the other side for these guys. But we know this is not necessarily so. Each age of life has its blessings. And the challenge is helping them identify that their youth is a blessing. Enjoy it. Take your time. Take your time. Observe. They don't explore anymore as kids. When I was a kid, we used to just leave the house, go play in the dirty creek next to the factory, look for frogs. We used to do it. They don't do that anymore. They don't enjoy their childhood. Is she talking to me? Youth should give life all they can give it now in the days of their youth and reap the harvest. A lot of these youths don't believe that their childhood is worth anything. But if they plant seeds in childhood and youth, they will reap a harvest in adulthood. And that's what I try to teach them. Don't waste time waiting for the time where I'm grown. Do it now. Do it now. Failing to get from life what is intended in youth will make adulthood less wonderful. And that's something a lot of us had to learn the hard way, even myself. And I share this with them. I give them my testimony constantly. I'm not here because of anything I've done. No. I got brothers, I got friends, see, where's Mike? This is what he got me up here for. I just took a trip to New Jersey. Talked to a cousin of mine who was just getting home from prison for about 12 years. All of the childhood issues, all of them start coming back. But what do? Do I sit there and I feel sorry? Huh? Do I feel like I'm better than anybody because I overcome and didn't have to do a 12-year jail sentence? No. All I could think about was my kids and all the things that they deal with, and let them know that no, you are not your circumstances. You're not. And the challenge is empowering them to understand that they have the ability to overcome these circumstances. Helping them identify that light that Jesus wrote on their heart instead of waiting for somebody else to save them. Okay, Mike, hold on. Give me a second. Give me a second. Children are somewhat like green apples, guys. They're not allowed to ripen. They would only become hard and bitter. I've seen that in some of our youngest children. It's happening at an earlier and earlier age that kids are becoming bitter. They're becoming jaded. And I feel better sometimes when I go home and I'm chipping away at some of those walls that they built. Unfortunately, it's not soon enough to save some of them. We lost a couple kids this year. And circumstances were, in a way, unavoidable. But what I try to identify to our staff, it's not the kids who are broken. We failed those kids. And whether they like to hear it or not, they need to take some responsibility for that. We need to be able to try to minimize some of these distractions, even if it's only for the 6 hours a day, to help these kids ripen into those juicy, sweet apples that they can be. But you cannot push the maturing process too fast or it will backfire. Growth and development always takes time. And that's why I'm noticing as some of our bad apples are transitioning in life, I feel bad because I got here a little too late to try to help them. But it helps me realize that the future is in the little ones. And their growth and development can still be nurtured and directed. Now, we play a role in this rushing. Many parents and adults are guilty of pushing the young into maturity before they're ready for it. This is part of the research I wanted to do here at RCA. just so I can understand what implications of the things I do, things I say, the things I watch, things I listen to can have on my own kids. They encourage parents early dating or play dates, right? We think that's innocent. Clothing sometimes is immodest for children. Adult activities and privileges, structured and controlled activities to the extent the child does not have time nor opportunities to even be a child. Some of our kids that we deal with are going through this just by the circumstances of their lives. I talked to one of my kids the other day. I'm walking around the lunchroom. I'm asking everybody. Unfortunately, we have a disproportionate amount of men than women. I'm asking all the guys, what are you doing for Mom for Mother's Day? What are you doing for Mom for Mother's Day? What are you doing for Mom for Mother's Day? And one of them said, I ain't doing nothing. And at first I wanted to say, you crazy. I just stopped for a minute. He said, that woman don't deserve nothing. I said, really? What do you mean by that? When I come home, I cook. I do this. I do that. And I stopped and I thought about it. And I watch him every day coming to school late, dragging his little brothers. You can see the strain on his face about what he's dealing with at home, about how he is the parent. And I shut up. I shut up and I said, you know what? I understand that. I get it. But at the end of the day, your circumstances are tough. And I can't tell you why they are what they are. But still, tell your mom you love her on Mother's Day. What? Goes to show you that some of these kids are pushed into being adults before they're ready. And they're coming to school with these adult problems. We can't treat them like children. They won't listen. They don't listen. We know that. We have to find another way. Find another way. But we also got to remember that young people are not small adults. They are young people. We should let them get the fullest from the period of life without trying to make them little adults before they are adults. Because they can't successfully be little adults. They can't. They can't understand adult problems even though they're going through them. They can't find adult solutions to adult problems because they don't have the tools. So we have to recognize their situation and also recognize that they're incapable of understanding and sometimes even communicating what they're going through. We see 10 and 12-year-olds dressed like they were 25. And it is a mark of offense against the child, believe it or not. It's not the child's fault. You offend your children when you do certain things like that. And it's a manifestation of some stupidity of the adults responsible, which I apologize for saying that, but sometimes when I wrote this, I was feeling a little angry. We see teens keeping hours like they were already mature. I would venture to say, I did a quick survey before I got here last week. I took a couple students, asked them to write down what they were eating all day, and I asked them to let me know what time they were going to bed. And 90% of the kids I talk to don't have a bedtime. They're not getting enough sleep. They go to bed whenever they feel like it. And you combine that with an unhealthy diet and maybe even some inherent disabilities, and this is what we deal with every day. A lot of these kids can't focus because of maybe some chemical imbalances, but that's not the case. And even if that is the case, everything else is just making it worse by aggravating it. These are challenges we have to help these children identify. Without getting off on a tangent, I want to see if maybe we can get some grant writers in here. My wife knows some people. I want to see a free breakfast every morning. These kids are eating Pop-Tarts for breakfast after eating cereal the night before 12 hours ago, and then won't eat lunch. I find myself, after lunch, bringing in food for my biology class because either they're upset they haven't had anything to eat, or they can't focus because they're tired. They've been through the most part of the day without no fuel for their bodies. All of this, guys, is only leading to corruption of the vessel. These are the things our young people are dealing with. Peer pressure. We all know what that is, right? But nowadays with social media, they're not being just pressured when they're around their peers, they're being pressured around the clock. Try to teach the kids that they need to learn to be themselves, and not imitations of others, which is hard to do in this global environment. Everybody's got the same fashion, everybody's listening to the same music. They need to learn to think for themselves rather than blindly following the way of the crowd. You should see the look on some of my kids' faces when I challenge them to think. When I challenge them to not read something out of a book, to give me an answer that I know they know, all they have to do is think about it. One of my kids got so upset at me, he went home and told his mom. And she called the office. Mind you, she's an educator, so she said, I'm sure Mr. Burnett was not picking on you, but I just want to call and, see what was going on. So I called her and I told her. I said, the man did the homework very well. Mind you, I got an issue with them looking for answers in Google and all of that stuff, but even writing down the answer, you should be able to repeat or reiterate something that you've written down. I asked him a question. He went to look and, no, tell me what it is. And he felt I was putting them on the spot. They squirm. They squirm when you ask them to think, to have an individual thought. Surely all should try to be socially acceptable to some degree. I understand that. They need to be friendly. They need to be courteous. They need to be fair. They need to be gentle. They need to be pleasant. They need to be polite. But all must learn to stand on their own feet and be independent of others to the extent that they do not let others govern their lives. I talked to them about this when I was talking about discipline. And it even ties into standards. Beginning of every marking period, I do a 1 week little module on goal setting and career goals, personal goals, all of that stuff. When I first started it, my first question on a piece of paper was, who are you? Mr. Burnett, what do you mean by this? It's right. Who are you? I can't do this. What do you mean? Who are you? What do you stand for? Tell me something that's important to you. Okay, all right, rephrase it. What do you want to be? I don't know, Mr. Burnett. What do you mean what I want to be? Guys, you never thought about this? This isn't just 6th grade. I got 6 through 12. All of them. Seniors going into the real world next year. I don't know, Mr. Burnett, I never thought about that. You know why? They don't have independent thoughts. From the minute they leave here, they're being trained into an abyss full of social media and what other people are doing, what other people are thinking. We got to reframe that. We have to reframe that. We have to try to instill in them that they should never compromise what is true after we help them identify it. To the extent that they do not let what is true and right before God to get along and go along with anybody. One talent youth must develop is the ability to stand even if they have to stand alone. That's hard. And the incident I spoke about before I got into standards, that's what it was about. Nobody was making a stand for what all of them knew was right. All of them, oh, that was funny. Oh, that was funny. You just see what he did? No. What do you mean? Come here for a second. Let me talk to you. What do you mean you see what he did? That was crazy. But was it right? Should he have done that? I mean, if that was me, I wouldn't. So why are you celebrating his act? You're supposed to be one of the leaders here. You say that was wrong. You say, no, you shouldn't have done that. I don't got nothing to do with that. Stand. Nobody's taking a stand nowadays. Peer pressure. They're afraid. They're afraid of being ostracized. It's a survival tactic. Our small little school, right? I have sleepless nights about some of the kids that we lost that are now in public school. Our small little school kids are putting on their survival armor just to be socially accepted. I can imagine what life is like in those public schools. This is what children are facing nowadays. God's people have always had to be such people. I told them that. Nobody said this walk was going to be easy. He doesn't want it to be easy. My last talk, I said, God's not preparing you for a picnic. Never said that. He's preparing you for battle. Right? And Mike and the Amers are doing something really interesting this last week, and I'm curious to see how it went. I was out of town traveling. They're doing this debate on atheism versus Christianity. And a lot of these kids are so confused about a lot of the rhetoric and propaganda out there. They will identify that, yes, this may be so, but no, that can't be so. But the bottom line is, they don't understand, like it says in Ephesians, that the battle is not in flesh and blood. This is a cosmic war going on that we have no power to fight. All we can do is educate ourselves and put on that armor of God. Right? So they can identify and they can admit that there are forces beyond control, but not admit that they need to be prepared. That they're helpless without preparation. This is something that debate has helped me notice. And in my class, me being a scientist, we had some good stuff to talk about. And I might get into that a little later, but I don't want to get off topic here. Like I taught them in the past, unless they learn to be disciplined, to stand for truth regardless of what others, you are subject to being tossed to and fro all your life in the wind. If you don't have a foundation, if you can't stand like a tree stump in that wind, you're going to be tossed to and fro, and God can't use you for that. Your family can't use you if that's who you are. None of your loved ones are going to be able to. You're useless to society unless you have a strong-rooted foundation. It's something that you stand for. This is an interesting one, guys. When I wrote this one down, I had to look myself in the mirror. Because, in the sake of being relatable, I had to question, was I compromising certain things? Another thing that these children deal with every day is adult hypocrisy, or perceived adult hypocrisy. They think they know it all. They think they can understand every adult action just by what they see. Youth are troubled over what they perceive to be hypocrisy in adults. A hypocrite is one who pretends to be what he really is not and really does not intend to be. Has no intention on being that person, but I'm going to act that way. He does what he does for show. He says one thing but does another. That's the one that the kids hang on. They wait. They wait for you to say one thing and do another. Oh, Mr. Burnett, you did this. You said that. No, wait a second. Nope, I got you. Ha, I got you. Some of the strongest language of condemnation found in the Bible is in Matthew. Chapter 23, where the Lord Jesus condemned hypocrisy. That adults as well as youths are often guilty of this pretense is not to be denied. Children are born into a world where everybody cares for them. Every decision is made for them in their early years, and they learn to love and trust the adults around them. They assume what adults say and do is always right, but as youths grow older, they come to realize that adults do not always live according to what they say. Nor are they always what they ought to be. Even those in whom youths have placed their confidence sometimes prove to be a heartbreaking disappointment to them. The response to this awareness that there is often inconsistency among adults sometimes causes some young people to think nobody is honest. Nobody cares. Nobody really is trying to do what is right. Why should I? Nobody else is doing it. Even the adults. Why should I? They're watching their parents. They're watching TV. They're watching us. But this response is wrong, and the conclusion is wrong. It is foolish to throw overboard all truth because somebody in whom we place confidence does not live according to truth. That is not the fault of truth. We do not do this in other matters of life. Do you, Coach? Why should we do it in matters of the Bible, the church, and religion? Are you going to quit going to a doctor because some of them get sick? Are you going to violate the law because some law enforcement officers violate it? Shall we cease to ride in the car? Be some drivers drive recklessly? Are you going to discard God's teaching on marriage because some divorce? Are you going to get rid of all your tires because one goes flat? We don't do it anywhere else. So we need to focus on this and teach this to the children. We can't let them be turned off by the walk of man. They should not follow man. And I don't hear that enough. And don't get me wrong, I've tried to communicate that with them. It's one of my issues I'm going to bring up with Mike, teach me how to better explain that to him. But it makes sense when you put it that way. We don't do it anywhere else. Why here? Nobody's perfect, not even adults. Not all adults are hypocrites, however. All who make mistakes are not hypocrites. Adults are human beings and are facing many problems. And this is where being transparent to the kids comes in. If they see you as just a person like them, as opposed to somebody standing here talking at them, they're likely to understand where you're coming from a little better. They'll break down, they'll help you break down that wall and let you in just a little bit more. So when there is a humanistic side they see of you, it won't destroy the myth. It won't destroy the legend. Adults are human beings and are facing many problems, temptations and threats of which youth are not yet aware. This is not to excuse adults for evil conduct, but it is to simply encourage youth to face realities regarding adults. Only Christ was perfect, and only he is the standard by which to measure all things. No man walking this earth, no teacher, no CEO, no president. But do they know that? I'm here to tell you now they don't. Even parents are not perfect, something we deal with in our student body. Parents, the first teachers of the children, a lot of them are very imperfect. And they come to school with that. And they don't know it, but they're looking for that model. They are. And if we don't remind ourselves of that every day, then we're failing them. We're failing them. But also, preachers and elders aren't perfect. Young people aren't perfect either. But it is a good sign that you're reaching a higher level of maturity, I tell them, when you can understand the difference between what a person ought to be and what he actually is. And see the difference in between what you have been taught and what sometimes people do. They're not always going to be perfect. I got some kids who, they try. They go 2 weeks, doing good. And as soon as they make a mistake, as soon as they give in to an impulse, as soon as they blurt something out, as soon as they throw something, as soon as they say a bad word to another student, then it's just, whatever. That's it for the rest of the day. For the rest of the week, they give up. No more effort. No more effort in giving in to the right thing because they failed. So once we inspire them, once we motivate them to try, we got to let them know, listen, you're going to fail. We all fail. But it's the attempt. It's the sincerity of heart, of change, of growth. That's all we ask. And I've seen that in some of our kids. I've seen them grow. I really have. I've seen a lot of them trend downwards, but I've seen a lot of them grow as well. Now, unfortunately, adults may aggravate the problem by their inconsistent lives, but even the youth must remember to set their sights on Christ. Nobody else. Nobody else. Not any human being or authority figure, which is a whole other issue, because their perception of authority is a little skewed, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. While it may be rather disturbing to go from the realm where all sublime can be shocked into reality that all is not perfect, this is a part of leaving the innocent world of childhood and entering into the world of reality and adulthood. Some of my kids can't understand this because they're too young. But my older high school kids, these are the conversations I have with them because I know they can understand it. I know they need to hear it. This is part of being an adult. It's reality. No fantasy world out here. We must teach them not to let human frailties shake their confidence in God. That's the key. We have them Wednesdays. Dave, Rob, we have them, right? We have them. We have them. But then when they walk outside, all it takes, one of their students, fellow students, when they get home, all it takes is a neighbor. All it takes is a cousin. All it takes is a parent. All it takes is something they see on TV to displace what we put inside their heads. And we lose them. There's too many inconsistencies out there in the world for them. We got to figure out a way. We got to figure out a way to be the majority of their limitation all day. It's hard. Some things I've considered, don't know what the future holds for me, but if next year, maybe some way we can integrate these distractions. We can use them somehow, particularly cell phones, social media. I don't know. There's models out there where teachers have done this. I don't know how we can, but we need to meet them where they are, as the guy Ron Clark says. This is where they are. We got to meet them or we're going to lose them. I won't go on much longer, but I want to give a short list of some contemporary cultural problems. Those are timeless problems. Those are things we've been facing for centuries. But this is what this generation is facing particularly. The Amers do a good job of identifying most of these on our Wednesday chapels. So students don't find themselves struggling to resist the cultural tide on their own. But I just want to let the church know what we're dealing with on a weekly basis. These kids don't have enough example of those walking the walk. Like I said, we try our best here, but then what? We got a lack of parental involvement. I would like to see the board put something in the contract. Parents got to come to church 2 days a month, whatever. They need to be here. They need to be here. We need to set standards for parents as well. They need to participate. And who knows what can happen. Mike does this to me all the time. You trick somebody to being in a place, the heart can't deny the truth. Not to say you tricked me into doing things, but yeah. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Lack of family discipleship, like I just spoke about. Divorce, family issues. One kid had an issue. He's how should I put this? What is it? PDA? He's a habitual PDA guy, for those out there who know what that is. He's got a girlfriend, and he's very... So we had an issue, a run-in with him the other day, and just me and Coach do a lot of good cop, bad cop stuff. So, yeah. I talked to him, and the minute I spoke to him, the kid just broke down crying. He was having a bad day. I said, I don't care. That's no excuse. We talked about that. That's no excuse. You need to be the master of your emotions. I get it. It's hard, but you don't tell me you're having a bad day. That's unacceptable. Mr. Burnett, I don't get enough sleep. You know, it's hard for me to sleep. I don't eat well. All excuses, but I know something was different about this kid. He wears the mask of ha, 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 but today something was wrong. The next day, his girlfriend pulled me to the side. He wasn't in school. And she told me, Mr. Burnett, can you please talk to him? I'm like, why? What's going on? Did he say something? Is everything all right? She's like, she wanted to go on. We just didn't have the time, but she's starting to tell me about his life at home. She says he doesn't have any male role models. And this is from the atypical student. I know him when I see him, but without giving into my own stereotypes, I would have never guessed that this kid was going through what he was going through at home. He doesn't have a father figure, and whenever his mom does have a boyfriend, he's some crackhead or something that abuses him, and ever since he was young, he had to take care of his brother. He's under a lot of pressure, and he's immature. You know he's immature. He doesn't know how to handle it, so, you know, he's going through a really tough time now. And I'm like, all right, well, what happened? What happened? She said, I don't know. He was at my house yesterday, and his car broke down. And I went out to go to work. He didn't even say anything, but he was just in his car, the windows rolling up. He was crying, he was soaking wet, and he was just hysterical. And I'm like, wow, okay, just give me his number, let me call him. He wasn't here, so I didn't know what else to do. Called, no answer. I finally spoke to him, and you know how they do. Oh, no, it's okay, Mr. Burnett, I'm okay. And I was just going through something at the time. And You know, I really don't have many people to talk to. She's my only friend, and blah, 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 blah. And there, I took my moment. I get it, but, you know, she's not there for that. You guys are kids, first of all. Second of all, it's only one place you need to go with your problems, and it's not her. I'm not even going to get into taking your problems to Jesus, because you know that. You need to go to Rob. You need to go to Mike. You need to talk to other people and let everybody know what's going on. It's a lot of times that I get this stuff. Who else did you talk to? I talk to this person. I don't really talk to anybody else. These kids are burying this stuff very deep, very deep. Now, don't get me wrong. My knack for looking at people's heart, sometimes I'm not as good. Sometimes I get taken. You know, it's just the part of the gift and the curse. But this was real. This kid is going through some stuff. And I know he's a manipulator. I know that. He got me from day one. But this was real. But he has nobody at home. A lot of pressures at home, just like the other kid. He's playing dad to a disabled brother. He's playing father/husband to a troubled mom. And he's playing whooping boy to whatever boyfriend is in the house that day. Now, we should understand that as teachers, but what I try to teach the kids as well is that you have to make sure you understand where we're coming from. They get upset whenever we correct them. I don't like to say discipline them. We correct them. Oh, you mess with me. Oh, you don't like me. This person don't like me. Why would you say that? No, I really got to bring them back down to the ground floor. Why would you say that? In a public school, I hate to say it, never been to one. Well, I went to one, but never taught at one. In a public school, maybe you can say that. But do you understand why people are here? Do you understand that? You know we don't make much money here. And you know that we probably could be doing other things in life. So that's number one. Number two, once again, you guys tend to forget, as much as we try to be your friends, you guys are kids, we're adults. Why would we not like you? Like, why would we waste time not liking you? I hate to say it that way, but sometimes I got to get real with them. Why would I got real problems at home. You think I'm not going to like, why wouldn't I like you? And they just look like, you know that face when you know you're getting to them. They just start pondering. When they can finally empty all that nonsense and you can put something in there, they're just like, I guess you're right. And then that's when they start saying things differently. But it's only for a flash. We got to learn how to try to maintain some of those attitudes and approaches. All right, so let me finish up here. Absent father figures, that's pretty obvious. Living in an anti-Christian culture, that's the biggest thing. All these YouTube videos, all of this subliminal indoctrination, I call it, on TV that they think is benign, which is so far from the truth. All of this we battle with every day. Not only is it a distraction because they're so busy wasting time on that stuff, rather than sleeping or seeking Christ, but they come in with all this curiosity. Mr. Burnett, what about this? Me being a science teacher, I get it all. What about this? Why do you explain that? And what about this? And what about that? Now, I pride myself on being pretty good at it. So when I completely debunk or make them feel silly for believing stuff that they're seeing, I get that look again. And I know I got them. You know, I got it out and I got it in. But the key is, this is all they have. This is what they're being bombarded with. It's bad out there, guys. And I feel old saying it. Like I say, we got to identify when we're old. I'm old. I'm saying things that people said to me when I was a kid. I'm old now. I'm officially old. But this is real. It's worse. We know that Satan attacks our youth, and he's in his fourth quarter right now. This is what I tell the kids. You guys have no idea what you are being subjected to. We weren't. We were guarded from some of this stuff. We were able to let the family, whether community or whether our nuclear family, be the primary influences in our lives. Now parents have to work overtime to deal with all of that other stuff, and they're not doing it. Even the ones who think they're doing it, they're not doing it. Okay, you're providing them with everything they want. You got a roof over their head. But are you giving them the true food of the Spirit? They're not. They're not doing it. So when they come in here, this is our job, and we have to try to battle all of that other stuff going out there in society, and it's tough. It's tough. The world out there is the forces aligning against all Christian worldview. I got this book I want to give Rob, but it brought it into perspective for me about how, this is ever since we took the church out of school, that was the start of it. And I'm telling you, I really appreciate being able to be here because I couldn't imagine having to muzzle myself in a public school. Because you can't address their problems if you don't talk about the spiritual aspect of what they're dealing with. Because they're under attack. Nobody wants to admit it. But when I tell you atheists, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he didn't exist. They stop. Whoa, maybe he could be right. In their conspiracy-laden minds, you got to throw a conspiracy at them. And isn't that the greatest conspiracy in Christian history? Relationships. Back to my troubled student. Because of all this void they need to fill in their lives, they have these relationships that tend to be bad, whether it be friends influencing them or whether it be misplaced, call it love, but it's lust. This is what we deal with every day. It's one of the biggest obstacles in nurturing a teen's spiritual growth is that they seek these relationships more than anything else. They seek these relationships more than they seek God. They seek this relationship more than they seek advice. They want approval from their friends. They want this romantic validation. This is what they're looking for. This is what makes them feel like they matter. Our job, not being able to completely separate it, it's a fact of their life right now, is to try to get them engaged in the right relationships and try to help them identify the wrong ones. Whether it be with friends following the wrong crowd, or whether it be with unhealthy girlfriend, boyfriend things. We've dealt with that. To where it was such a passion for each other that one would get so upset and punch holes in the wall and completely just go off the deep end because things wasn't going right in that high school relationship. Biggest issue is a sense of self. Once again, how can they have a sense of self? They're living everybody else's lives, watching Facebook videos, enjoying everybody else's experiences, and this is a chemical satiation in the brain. They can get a sense of fulfillment by watching somebody else live life. But then what are you making yourself a victim for? And this is our children. This is our youth. I told you guys, there's so much discomfort when I ask a kid, who are you? They just squirm. I don't know. What do you mean? I'm Leroy. Sorry, I don't want to use names. But this is what I get. A lot of the students I've dealt with have to learn about themselves as they learn about Christ, which is the way it's supposed to be. Can you truly ever know yourself if you don't know who Christ is, what he's done for you, why you're here? Too often it's been all of one and none of the other. Once they figure out who they are, they have a much easier time recognizing who God wants them to be. And I really believe that. But the key is we have to start building their esteem. We have to start doing some more goal setting. We have to start encouraging, inspiring. And I'm not going to lie to you, church, we're doing a great job, but we can be doing better. We got some teachers who have given up. They have. Well, these kids are broken. We can't do that because at home they got this, at home they got that. No. RCA can be their salvation. I found peace in places that wasn't my home. I had to. Whether it was a basketball court, whether it was a friend's house, football court. They don't recognize that they're looking for other places. But if you're not receptive, if you're not there to receive them, then what are you doing? What are you doing? Guys, I got so much more, but I'm going to stop here. I don't know what my future holds. I got a lot going on in my life. But it's funny, I was listening to a song coming in here. And sometimes you think your life is falling apart, but a lot of times it's falling into place. So we all face problems. Today's teens are surrounded by them. The good news is that with an upward shift of perspective, change in the paradigm, change in the thought process, reframing our situations, that all of our circumstances, turn them all into God's purposes. If we do that, not just the kids, some of us adults might be presented with opportunities that we may have never otherwise had. But we need to make sharing the gospel our goal. It's my approach. Talk to them. I can relate to them. It's not fair for some other people who try because they can't, but I can relate to them. And I do it all the time. As well as take courage from other Christians. I don't do this. I don't like doing it. I'm good at it, but I don't like it. Last week, I gave a Wednesday chapel because I was challenged by two of my students. All right, I'll do it this week, you do it the next week. And it made me help them realize that attacking your fears, experiencing discomfort more often is going to make you more comfortable. It's going to make you stronger. And I got that through strength of other Christians here at RCA. Not getting caught up in what other people are doing, but rather focus on the message of the cross of Christ going forth. And not like it hasn't been, but may it be in the future. Homestead Church of Christ and RCA's objective and ambition, and not just the kids' lives, but our lives. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Will, for sharing your heart. RCA is a ministry, and sometimes, over the years, I've watched it fight between being a business and a ministry. And I'm grateful for all the people that are at RCA to look beyond what's supposed to be and look to what is. It's the only way we can help them. God has sent them to us. And it's our job to help them. Father God, we're just really, really grateful and mindful, Father God, of all the people in this world, Father God, and everything that's going on out there. And we all have this image in our mind of what's supposed to be. And we forget, Father God. We need to look beyond that. We need to look and see what's going on in each and every person's life and see how we can help. I'm grateful for the years that I've been here at RCA. I never thought I would be involved in a school for so long. I'm grateful because over the years I've seen people like Will and others, Father, who truly just reach out each and every day, look beyond the misbehavior or the irresponsibility, but to the hurts that are there. Helps me remind me, Father, of all the hurts of all the people in this world. Help us continue to make that our priority. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.